I'm about to give you a piece of advice that I know you're not going to follow, but I'm going to do it anyway. Please do not overreact to week 1. Oh, yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Family, welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We're going to wrap up today's episode by taking a look at the 5 players, and I almost kept going and going and going, but I narrowed it down to the 5 players that I am watching in the 2025 HBCU football season. In segment 2, I want to take a look at the shots that were fired from Coach Cris Dishman towards Tremaine Jackson and Prairie View A&M, and how I think this changes how the Labor Day Classic will be looked at in 2025. But let's kick this whole thing off with a warning. I'm going to give you a piece of advice. You know how people say, I'm not going to waste my breath. Hey, man, don't waste your breath on that. I'm a professional breath waster. I'm going to be honest with you. I am a professional breath waster because I'm going to give you advice that I know you're probably going to struggle to take. I may even give you advice that next week you'll come on this show and accuse me of being hypocritical, accuse me of going back on the advice I gave you. But please do not overreact to week 1. I think we'll all be guilty of it in some capacity, but I think that I would rather be wrong about week 1 than overreact about week 1. Now, while those are 2 cousins and they're definitely related, they are not the same thing. They are not the same thing to give a takeaway that may be wrong and give an overreaction. And I think we have to be wary of doing it. Everybody, you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who's going to do it. And everybody in that chain that I just made up is going to be guilty. Like, it's just part of the game. And I think it's so easy to do it because we haven't seen these people play football in a year. We haven't seen these people play football since November, maybe December, if you're lucky enough to be a Jackson State or South Carolina State fan. And then even when you're talking about being a fan of those 2 schools, you still have new pieces coming around. You still have people who are looking for your downfall. You still have people who, quite frankly, are just watching the game to watch it. And they're coming up with their own conclusions about who you are, what you're about, off of 60 minutes of action. And if we're going to be completely honest, I'm going to try to be. You try to be too. 60 minutes of action is not enough to tell you who a team is. And it would lead to some very bad takes. But that's part of what week 1 is. Week 1 is deciding. Week 1 is deciding what a team will be for the entirety of their season based off of 1 week. Now think about it. You watch your team have a bad week. You don't want it to be in week 1, but when it happens in week 1, it all of a sudden is your identity that is difficult to shake. And listen, I'm not giving you advice that is not difficult for me to take. It's very difficult for me to not overreact when I see this because I'm trying to come up with these bold statements. And listen, I do this for a living. I talk about sports for a living. So I get how attractive it can be to give a bold stance, whether you're on social media, whether you're on a show like I am, whether you're leaving in a comment, to give a bold stance. I would advise you not to do it because these are not the finished products that we will see at the end of the year. Will there be pieces? 100%. Right? Who you are in week 1 will likely be a part of who you are for most of the season, for most teams. Like, if I gave you everybody in the SWAC and who they look like in their first, I don't want to say week 1 because some people are playing P5 schools, but whatever that first matchup where you start being critical of a school, right? You take the first week of that for every team in the SWAC and you compare it to who they are at the end of the year, I'd say probably 12 of them, 14 of them will have the highs and lows from that game as a part of their year. Will they have the consistency? That will be the argument. Will they have those consistent low moments that led to a upset loss in week one? Will they have those consistent high moments that led to an upset victory in week one? Those are the questions that really do define a season. If you're able to do this game in, game out, drive in, drive out, play in, play out, right? It's consistency over everything else, right? You can talk about the skill sets. We talk about ceilings all the time. And I think that a ceiling is a great way to talk about what a player or a team can be. But the truth of the matter is, I do not think that most people hit their ceiling. I really don't. I do not think that most people become the greatest version of themselves. As unfortunate as that is, we can become great versions of ourselves, but a lot of times the majority of us do not reach our full potential. I think the greatest of us do and exceed our potential, but the most of us don't. That's just how it goes. And I think that's the same can be said, or excuse me, I think the same can be said about a team. I think the same can be said about a player. We talk about this, ceiling that. This guy has a higher ceiling, but this player is better. Who really cares if the ceiling is higher if the person isn't better? Really think about that. Ceiling matters when we're talking about draft potential. I think that is a huge factor when talking about being a prospect, because all of that is projecting who you be. So your ceiling, of course, is going to be something that gets people bought into who you could be because they're trying to help you reach that. But when we're talking about the actual football games that are being played, I don't care that you have this super talented player who for some reason can't get the mental side down. But I'm going off on a tangent, so excuse me. It's extremely easy to overreact to everything we see in week one. It's going to be the first time that we see these schools. It's going to be the first time that we see some of these players. Hey, FAMU is going to have a new quarterback. It's going to be the first game that he plays in college. We could easily overreact to that. Please don't. I'll give you an example. And I've already told you why it's not good to. I was ready to unload the clip on Southern. I ain't sitting here lying to you. I was ready to unload the clip on Southern after that performance that they put out in the MEAC SWAC Challenge. Because to me, I felt like it was terrible. And I reflected on last year. Last year, I was ready to give up on Southern because I think it was their game versus Savannah State. And their absolutely terrible offensive performance in that game stuck with me for the rest of the season. And to this day, I don't know if I'm just being stubborn. I don't know if I'm just hammering in and can't let go of that one performance, or if I really didn't feel excited about their offense at any point during the season, but I didn't. And it's one of the reasons that I don't consider them one of the great teams from 2024. So then when I see what I saw in 2025 in that opener, I'm sitting here like, all right, like what are we doing here? This is not a top tier team. Takeaways versus overreactions. Allow me to give you an example. To me, and you may still think this was an overreaction, I'm okay with that. But to me, my takeaway from North Carolina Central versus Southern was that these two teams are in different weight classes. They should not be fighting each other. This is a heavyweight versus a middleweight. That is my takeaway from North Carolina Central versus Southern. Now, you may feel like that's an overreaction because this is not the finished product of Southern. This is not even the Southern team that may be led by their quarterback of 2025, who could be Jalen Woods. I completely accept what you may say there. But to me, stating that these two teams, after 60 minutes of action and prior belief going into the season, I do not think that that is an overreaction. I think it's a takeaway, maybe even a bold takeaway. But I don't necessarily know if I just saw 60 minutes and, whoa, no way. I think Southern is a solid team. I think North Carolina Central is a great team if we're talking about ceilings. And at week one, I guess that kind of matters until we start figuring out who they will be. But all in all, do not overreact. This is my message from you. Take it from the mouth of the South. Do not overreact to week one. It is the first time that these teams have played in live action. A, players will get better. B, coaches will get better as far as understanding where to put their players in the best position. C, that could just be a product of who they're facing. That's the other thing you don't know. Like, what is Southern is doo-doo. Do we think about that? What if Southern is a terrible team? I'm sitting here singing the praises of North Carolina Central, but what if Southern is just garbage? What if North Carolina Central's thumping of the Jaguars does not mean that North Carolina Central has justified the hype of being a great team? What if it just means that they picked on a little dog? What if Southern is in no way as good as we thought that they could be? What if they're undeserving of being the SWAC West predicted champions? Now what do? This is why overreacting to week one is difficult. Because you think you know everything. You don't know nothing. You don't know anything. You don't know about the opponent. You don't know about the skill set. You don't know if it was a bad day. You don't know if that was just a poor matchup. There are so many things that go into play. Think about South Carolina State. How long were they were succeeding until we finally said, this might be a championship contender? I wonder about teams that they beat earlier in the season thinking, man, you lost to them. New coach came from the D2 ranks. And next thing you know, you turn around and that's a national championship contender. Celebration Bowl contender. These things change as the season goes on. So as you're sitting here on Sunday morning, put yourself in that position, and you're just thinking about the week of action you watched, don't overreact. That's the only thing I'll say to you. But let's talk about my alma mater, because Chris Dishman has shots he wanted to fire. Tremaine Jackson said, I'm not with all of the talking because we don't need to. Woo! The Labor Day Classic is just a few days away, and I cannot wait. So let's continue talking about it as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money, and most people can't even name all of their financial accounts or what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And I don't know anybody who wants to do that. Monarch is built for people with busy lives, like me, like you, like probably a lot of people that you know. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting, so you don't have to. And you can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending. And finally, feel in control of your spending for the first time in a long time. Maximize your investment, increase your savings, and easily review your finances with your partner. All of these things are possible through Monarch Money. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and the NFL season is almost here. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with can't-miss offers. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Let me say this again, because I've been using FanDuel for a minute. I've been talking about this read for a minute. I done seen 100, I done seen 150, I done seen 200. One thing I have never seen on FanDuel is put down a $5 bet. If it wins, you get $300. I haven't seen it, which means you're not going to see it again for a long time. Take advantage of that right now. Do not wait. Matter of fact, do it as I am talking. NFL season is here. MVPs, week 1, divisional champions, Super Bowl champions, week 1, 2, 3. We're here. No more waiting. Just go to FanDuel right now. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet now. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On NFL so that you can get up to date. Maybe you got a fantasy league coming up. You want to know who the prime players are. Also, let me know how you're feeling about this audio. We're doing something a little bit different. Got a different microphone today. This is not going to be the norm, but in a pinch, we may have to use it, and I would love to know how you feel about it. So, who knows? Who knows? I may use it more if you like it, if it sounds good. I'll go and check myself as well. But one thing that happened over the weekend or earlier this week is the Labor Day Classic had their press conference, and Chris Dishman was talking cash money. And you know what? I like it. I'm not a huge trash talker myself. Maybe it's because when I was younger, I wasn't the greatest at it. Maybe that's what it was. But I love some trash talk, even if it's not my cup of tea. When it comes to Chris Dishman, it was interesting because I was so surprised to hear him talk trash. But I was more surprised with Tremaine Jackson's response to the trash talk. So let's go through what Dishman said. He said a few things. He sent some shots, okay? It's not like he came up there and gave one jab and moved on. Coach Dishman gave Tremaine Jackson and Prairie View about 3 different shots in the opening segment of his press conference, right? Mind you, at this moment, Jackson had already went. So it wasn't as if Jackson could give a full retort, even if he wanted to. We'll get into why that wouldn't have happened. You know, the great Kanye quote, everybody wants to know what would happen if I didn't win. I guess we'll never know. We don't know for sure, but I have a pretty good idea on what Tremaine Jackson would have done if he was going second in this instead of first. But anyway, so let me get some of these shots. The first one went over my head. I did not know about this one, but he said basically, we heard the singing that you did. You might want to stick to your day job. I thought he's just being funny. I'm like, okay, why are you talking about this guy singing? Shout out to Kyle Mosley at HBCU Legends, because it was his article that I realized, oh, Tremaine Jackson was singing something. I think it's called Atlanta on My Mind or something along the lines of suggesting that Prairie View is going to go to Atlanta, like a coach would suggest. Everybody wants to start the season, or excuse me, end the season in Atlanta. I guess Dishman started singing it too, and he didn't really appreciate it. I don't know, but I thought it was funny saying, hey, man, cut all that singing out. Because while you're saying don't quit your day job, as in you didn't sing well, which is what he said, I think he's also putting out a message like, you looking towards Atlanta, you got to get through us. And you ain't getting through us. All right? I love that. That went over my head. Another one that went over my head, and then we'll get to the main event of it all, is, or not over my head, but this was just kind of a subtle one that I didn't think was really too much. I grasped it, whatever. But he was talking about beating PV last year and saying how TSU's 11 was better than PV's 11, and something along the lines of it'll be that way. This year, it doesn't come down to Tremaine versus myself. I'm talking about Dishman. It doesn't come down to Tremaine versus Dishman. It comes down to our 11 versus their 11, and our 11 are better. I thought that was a strong statement. I didn't even consider that trash talk. The thing is, when you combine it with the main event of the evening, it does feel a little trash talky. So this is what he says. He says, thank you, Tremaine, for coming out to see the stadium. Make sure when you leave that you take a piece of grass, because when you leave on Saturday, you're going to be taking a lot of grass. I ain't never heard that one before. I'm going to be honest with you. I ain't never heard that one before. And if people ain't pointed out, I probably would have been thinking, what do you mean take a lot of grass? Maybe I'm just slow. Maybe I'm young. I ain't never heard that one as trash talk, as a way that we're going to keep putting you on the ground. That's what I assume it to mean. I don't care. I don't care if it was old school. I don't care if it's just something that Dishman says. I understood and I took the point. I love it. I absolutely love it, because this feels like a rivalry. And you have to remember that Darrion Gray, aka the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum, and former TSU Herald sports editor, I have never seen a Texas Southern victory over Prairie View in football while I was in college. Never saw it. So when it comes to this being a rivalry, I don't know what that feels like. I think the entire class before me, oh no, let's see, it got up to 8 or did it go up to 9? But basically, I was a part of 4 of them. People before me, people after me. I was smack dab in the middle. So I didn't see it. I didn't feel it. I didn't get this rivalry. I had to wait till basketball season, and we was stomping on them boys. All right, so I ain't feel a rivalry then either. I felt full bragging rights. It was like night and day. It was night and day. Because when basketball season happened, yeah, you got your win every now and then. But I got to, that was my moment. That was my time to shine. And I have friends with the PV, right? So, that was my time to talk trash. But in football, no rivalry. No rivalry. I don't know anything about that. And I think that the recent history of this rivalry really does set a backdrop for how these comments will be perceived. Because Chris Dishman, he's 1-0. Chris Dishman has only beaten Prairie View, right? He's never lost to him. I know it's one game, but follow me. I think that because Tremaine Jackson did not engage with the trash talk, it looks like Texas Southern finally got a victory, and now they feel the ability to talk big. When the truth of the matter is, Dishman wasn't here for all of those losses. So he shouldn't inherit all of that comes with it. But here it is. I think that Tremaine Jackson, people saying he took the high road. I didn't think he took the high road. I just think that he didn't overtly talk a lot of trash. He said that Texas Southern needs that and PV doesn't. I mean, you can call it the high road, but that's still a jab. Like, I don't think it's a high road, but neither here nor there. Tremaine Jackson didn't say anything. And I was stunned because on yesterday's episode, which was recorded before that comment came to light, that was recorded Sunday night. Okay, just so we're clear. I talked about how Tremaine Jackson has been the most front-facing, public-facing coach in all of HBCU football this offseason. He's talked more than anybody. Does that mean talking equates to trash talk? No, it doesn't. It doesn't equate to that. But with all of the talking that Tremaine Jackson has done, I'm actually pretty surprised that he didn't respond with trash talk. He's been boisterous all year. I think that everything about PV has been quite boisterous this offseason. From the way that they market, from the recruiting rules, right? Like, he's really been standing on front as this is who PV is. This is what we're about. And we're coming in like the coach that says, we're not here to be a good SWAC school. We're here to be a good FCS school. Standing on the front line about his school. That's not trash talking to SWAC. Don't get it confused. I know exactly what he meant. But the coach who did that, I'm really surprised that he didn't join in on the verbal joust. I'm very surprised that when Cris Dishman said our 11 are better than your 11, when Cris Dishman said, I don't want you singing that Atlanta song, basically, when Cris Dishman came out and said you're going to take a lot of grass, that the only thing Tremaine Jackson had to say about it was, that's not our profession. That's not how we handle business. Other schools need to do that. We don't. I'm surprised that that's all he said. I don't have a problem with him not responding. I don't have a problem with him not engaging. But I do think when you combine the history of this game over the last decade, when you combine one school talking trash, one not, it puts the pressure on TSU like, hey, you better live up to that stuff you was talking. If both teams were chirping, it's just rivalry talk, which is still how I view this from Dishman's side. But I think stepping back objectively, Dishman talking trash, Jackson not engaging, it kind of feels like, yeah, you better back up what you're saying, TSU. And then it also feels like finally TSU got a win, and now they feel the ability to chirp. It feels like now TSU finally got a win, and they feel like, oh, everything's erased. But for Dishman, it is. Like, that's the thing. If the idea is now that Texas Southern won, so now they can chirp, Dishman's only won. So I can't help, but I don't know. I like the banter. I like the back and forth. I like the trash talk. I do. It's week 1. Let's not overreact, but let's talk some trash. And let's talk about a few players that from 1 all the way out to 12, I will be watching. I have 5 of them. I was actually only supposed to do 4, but I could not refuse. I could not hold back my 5th guy. So let's get into that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keeps you from punching projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. You need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. And we're talking about game changers. I don't know what a game changer is if it isn't that. Their trade master perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free trade program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support lines. I don't care if you need plumbing, HVAC, or electrical. It's there for every need you could possibly have, and it's very simple. So visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. I have 5 players to watch this year in HBCU football, and I could have kept going. I really could have kept going, but I decided to narrow it down to 5. And the first guy that I want to name is somebody that I've talked about countless times. I was talking to my guy Gerald about him. Not just because Gerald works at Morgan State and his player plays for Morgan State, but because we both share an affinity for Eric Hunter. And I think that Eric Hunter is a fantastic player. I think he's a very interesting prospect. I want to read some of the things that Gerald did say about him in his write-up. I'm going to put this link in here, right? Because I want to go to it's Gerald Huggins's top 10 prospects for the 2026 draft from HBCUs. And I wanted to give this, but he says at 6'3", 220 pounds, Hunter fits the mold of the modern day linebacker. Tall, sideline to sideline range, and coverage ability make him a player with a bright NFL projection potential. I love what he does on the field. And I think that was a great way to summarize it. But some of the pros are athleticism, sideline to sideline ability, versatility. And I think that if he can show coverage at a very high clip, there is a chance that he's able to move to a defensive back position in the league. I do think that Eric Hunter has that potential. But as far as helping Morgan State win, the reason I'm watching him is because he will be the key point of the defense for the first time ever. Like that, you could argue that it was him, it was Elijah Williams, depending on the day. But ain't no more depending on the day. Matter of fact, I forgot to check to see if Elijah made the Vikings. Let me see if he made the Vikings. Oh man, he did. Good. He did make it. Let me make sure I'm not lying. Yeah, he made it. Shout out to Elijah for making the 53. I forgot to check that this afternoon. Anyway, you could argue if it was Elijah or Eric depending on the day. Elijah, Eric. But right now it's Eric, unquestionably. So that's the reason I'll be looking for him. And I'm just going to roll through these pretty fast because it's 5 guys. I can't go through every single one of their player breakdowns. But yeah. Then you got Jonas Fortilian. Eric Hunter was the number 1 prospect on that list. Jonas Fortilian, number 3 prospect on that list. Gerald calls him at 6'5", not 6'20". That'd be crazy. At 6'5", 220. Fortilian is a big pass catcher with good contested catch ability and a catch radius. He projects as a fringe NFL roster prospect. I want to see how he performs in a crowded backfield, or a crowded wide receiver corps. I want to see what he's able to do because I think that of all of them, he's my favorite. I like his dimensions. I like the chemistry that he already has with Jacoby and Morgan. I really do. I think that, and I've said this before, I think that of all the wide receivers at Jackson State, Jonas Fortilian feels the most predictable. I feel like I know what I'm going to get from him. Big body, post up, red zone threat. I think he has the ability to stretch the field at times. It's not something you're going to ask him to do a lot, but I have seen him do it enough times. He's not a burner, in my opinion. I don't know what the 40 would say, but I'm looking at a guy who can play at multiple levels of the field, a big body guy. I really like Jonas Fortilian, and because he's in that crowded wide receiver room, that's the reason I'm going to be watching specifically his stat sheet, and then just to see if it matches with what I've already seen on tape. But I didn't put Morgan on here because I already put Fortilian, and I didn't want to double up at any school, and I have 2 quarterbacks. First, I'm going to go Walker Harris, who isn't on the top 10 list, but I like Walker Harris a lot. I really do. I think that Harris is a quarterback who's ready to take a step up. I like that in the Southern game, he did not try to be Superman because he didn't need to be. I like that he was able to move a lot quicker than I remember him moving in 2024. I thought that Walker Harris's decisiveness and quality of runs was increased. Let me know what you think. But to me, I didn't feel like Walker Harris ran as much as he did against Southern. And last year, I went back to look. And if you're counting sacks, it seems like he had 4 rushes last year, he had 4 rushes in 1 game. So Walker Harris was more decisive with his legs. I thought he showed more athleticism, more speed, more mobility, more elusivity. That's not a word, elusiveness. I thought that he showed all that. Elusivity should be a word. I say it too easily for it not to be a word. But yeah, then you got so you got Walker Harris there, and I want to see what he's able to do as North Carolina Central tries to take that next step. Andrew Body, I don't think I really need to say too much about Body here. I've said it before, but for my new everydayers, I'll keep it very brief. Andrew Body had a high ceiling at one point, and then he spent the next 2 years primarily out due to injury. And I think a lot of people gave up on what Andrew Body could be. I have not given up on what Body could be. I will say this, though, it's his last season to prove. Because the truth of the matter is, all of the hype around Andrew Body, it hasn't gone up because he hasn't been able to play, but all of the hype dates back to 2022, November of 2022. Since then, one game injury, and now we're back here. I'm just hoping to see him get past the first week. But I think that while other people got exhausted of talking about Andrew Body, I never have. While other people felt like those injuries were reason to say he'll never hit this ceiling, I never felt that way. To me, I'm still living in 2022. I'm still living in November of 2022 because I don't feel like I've seen enough to sway my opinion left or right. Call it stubbornness. Call it pride of wanting to be correct. Call it an allegiance to somebody who went to my alma mater. Call it whatever you want to call it. But this is where I stand today. I think that Andrew Body, once upon a time, had the potential to be a prominent quarterback in this conference. He has yet to leave this conference. The only problem is he has yet to play more than one game in the last 2 seasons. So first, we need to get past that first week. And then secondly, I'm going to judge him harshly because it's no, I had a down year. Probably doesn't even get the benefit of the doubt of having rust. Andrew Body is going to have 1 year to prove to everybody that that guy we thought he could have been 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, is exactly who he can be in 2025. And then lastly, Eden James. All this talk about Trey Holly, I forgot about my first running back crush, right? Like the first guy that I was raving about this offseason at the position was Eden James. And I know you got Kavon King, but I was talking about Eden James because this is his backfield. So for the first time, this is his rock. This is what he gets to do with it. And I am interested and I'm absolutely enamored with the skill set that he has put on tape before. I just want to see him do it with a larger sample size. So what is he going to be? What is Eden James going to be? That's the fascination. James is 5th on this list for the record. He is 5th on Gerald Huggins' list. And he says, James is a compactly built, sturdy running back with good vision and contact balance. He projects as an NFL camp/second-tier league starter prospect. I like Eden James a lot, and I want to see if he's able to increase that projection with a strong 2025. Because one thing we have noticed is that running backs tend to get love. HBCU running backs tend to get love in some capacity. So whether it's being drafted, whether it's being a UDFA, I can't wait. I really can't. This is going to be really interesting. I can't wait for the 2025 season. Tomorrow, I'll give you the games of the week that are not our game of the week. We're getting into our regularly scheduled programming. So make sure you're checking out for that. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.